Hey guys, this is the Sisyphus 55 podcast. Today we're joined with Tanner Braungardt. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. What up, everybody? Yeah, my name's Tanner. I think you got the last name pretty much right. Good job.
Sweet. Okay.
I'm a kind of former YouTuber, kind of current YouTuber, and yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of interesting shit. I also just woke up. I'm sure you did too.
Yeah. No, I think we're both pretty tired. What sort of content did you used to make / make?
So it started out with like I'd call it self-taught gymnastics. So like flips, parkour, free running, that sort of thing. I took up an interest in that when I was young, and then that sort of transformed into vlogging, and then I was uploading daily for like 2 years, and of course that'll do it if you're trying to become known on a platform. So yeah.
Yeah, daily for 2 years. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, starting at age, I was almost 16. That's right. Yeah, and then
Wow.
yeah, it was quite the adventure.
Well, on that note, today we're gonna kind of talk about social media use, burnout, and also you kind of started to get really into philosophy around the same time when you started to experience some sort of like repercussions of burnout.
Yes,
and
sir.
maybe some social media use. So we'll be talking about mindfulness. I think also Alan Watts a little bit.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, to start it off, what would you say are some of the pros and cons of social media use? Maybe starting with the pros.
Yeah. Hard to think of the positive things. I'm always dwelling on the negative. There's definitely positive things. I've met so many of my friends that do flips that I'd consider my best friends, from different states and different countries, all online, of course. Starting at when I was like 15, I was in Instagram DM groups with other people that did flips. So it helped me find that community there, and also now I have friends like I met you off social media, and we're talking about philosophy here and whatnot. So obviously those are some pros. And then cons, just I think you mix in this technology with our human nature that maybe isn't caught up, ready, mature enough to handle it. And we just have sort of a shit show that I think is apparent to everybody who goes on there,
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because that there's a few things you can take away from that, like the fact that social media offers so much novelty to the point that like we're probably not used to it. There's Instagram models, like these like really flashy like ads that just like draw your attention. These like clickbait titles, like we're not capable naturally of probably handling it.
No, probably not. And your last podcast, or the clip you excerpted from it, was you were talking about how you feel like a lab rat when you open up Instagram, like right after closing it. And I had a conversation about that with my mom and my brother, because I was like, literally, it's crazy. I know everybody does it, and because I'm sure you've watched like The Social Dilemma, and I've watched like podcasts with the people that made that film, and they just talk about how all that technology is designed to keep you on there. And so it's sort of like the people who are the best at holding your attention are going to be rewarded the most. And sadly, keeping your attention, I think, usually steers in the direction of like sensationalism and negativity and just like outrage shit. Who can say the most outrageous thing or do the most outrageous thing that no one can look away from. We still hear about Jake Paul or whoever, that's not, making any cures or moving in any sort of great direction or anything, you know what I mean? But we all still know about him.
Yeah, well, no, that's a very good point. There was it's almost kind of like it would be a good compliment to The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've read it. It's called The Shallows. By Nicholas Carr. and he kind of dives into the whole like why, like basically the neuroscience behind the impact of like the internet, just how the internet impacts our brains, basically. And there's one part where he talks about how historically writers would write, whether fiction or nonfiction or news, for they would presume would be an attentive audience, a kind of deep thinking audience. And with that in mind, they would usually create pieces that were pretty like engaging, articulate, comprehensive.
Yep.
Nowadays, Carr argues that writers are kind of composing pieces to create more of a sense of meaning, that we don't read in order to educate ourselves or further our like sense of self-discovery. We read in order to feel like we belong to somebody, or to some sort of group, or shared set of interests. So writers will write very kind of basic like signifiers that, you know, this piece is kind of towards people that share this belief or that belief. And it's usually sensational. It's not usually as kind of deep and comprehensive. It's because they know they're not writing for an audience that's going to really sit down and like take in each word. They're going to see this on their like Facebook feed, click it, maybe read like the headline and half of a paragraph and then close it and go on to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it goes. I'm sure you obviously know who Exerbia is. Sorry, my mom's like trying to call me and I'm ending the phone calls as they're coming in. You've had him on this podcast, right?
No, I haven't. I had Mistyverse on, and I think he had.
And he had It's all mushed together in my brain. Oh yes. Oh, I that's right. Exerbia. I think he had a video or mentioned in one of them how we might have fucked our attention spans. I remember watching that one. I believe it was him that made it, and just how it goes along with the social media dilemma, whatever. How we're always just opening new things from that, and then going to the comments, and then going to someone else's page, and then going to their following, and then photos of, and just the novelty thing that it truly has like hijacked our brains. And that's why we just, we'll open it right after closing it. It's sort of maddening.
Well, yeah, and I think in those, both in that book and like The Social Dilemma, they kind of talk about how they literally design these to replicate how casino machines work. So it's this constant like scrolling, and that you don't really know what's going to come up next, but it's that idea that you're going to be rewarded. Yeah.
Dude, I think Snapchat is one. I don't know if you have Snapchat that's sort of that's mastered that. My phone will buzz, and then I have to pick up my phone and look at it, have it scan my face, and then it'll show me like who Snapchat me. So it's like a little slot machine. Like I'm pulling the arm. Who's it going to be? It's like that. It's crazy.
See, I would say at least TikTok has, or at least Snapchat has that sort of. At least you're interacting with somebody that you know.
Exactly.
I was going to say TikTok, I'm amazed by, because it's such a quick, like you could tell the algorithm like literally feeds off of every single engagement you give it, and it's constantly giving you, it's like testing you. It's constantly kind of
how long will you exactly, like you can feel it.
None of it's stuff that I'm like personally interested in, but it's that scrolling, and it's so just kind of you end up in this sort of like trance, and like I think that they've pretty much perfected it. I don't know if it could get more kind of attention grabbing. Literally,
I wonder about that. I'm like, how can they get any more accurate with like what I want to see? If I spend 3 seconds looking at a TikTok that has flips in it, and then I scroll down and it's like someone cooking, and then I skip off that immediately, I can immediately start to see the increase in flipping videos that will be like just immediately. And it's like, God damn.
Well, I don't know if you ever read by Harari. He wrote Sapiens and Deus Ex. They're both, I think one of them just kind of tries to summarize the history of humanity, and the other one is kind of his idea of what the future will look like. But he predicts kind of that eventually the technology we use is going to be so good that it'll predict things before we even know that we like need or want them.
Good God. Yeah, that's kind of scary. Yeah. No, I haven't heard of that book either, and I'm sure I will hear of like none of them, considering I have that hashtag sophomore education from being a successful YouTuber and dropping out. I'm sure that was my main worry coming on this podcast. I'm like, I'm not intellectually fit, but it's all right. I'll do my best.
We have all types of people out here.
Great,
I'm sure you'll be fine.
I'll fit in somewhere. Yeah, I mean, I'd say I don't know exactly what that would look like, obviously, but I'd say we're headed there pretty fast.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things, like I'll open Amazon and it'll have been listening to me from 3 other apps and show me exactly what I was going to buy, or, there's like little things like that. It's like the apps work together in tandem to do that. And I was, I don't know if it was from the Social Dilemma or what, but maybe it was from Joe Rogan's podcast. They were talking about how Apple is rewriting their terms and conditions or whatnot to make it to where you can choose if you want your data to be accessed by the big tech to make your ads more suited to you or whatever, or if you want it to just be like the normal experience, I guess. So
yeah, I heard something about that Facebook, that it's going to like really ruin Facebook because that's pretty much their entire business model is selling our data.
Yep. I mean, I think some people like it. I don't know how I feel about it because I don't know too much in depth. All I know is that they can show me exactly what I was thinking about or talking about with someone else.
It's almost more accurate than like keeping like a diary or journal, because it's almost like when you go through your internet history, you're almost seeing a part of your brain.
Yeah, and your phone's not going to forget it. It's going to have that perfect little tab with exactly what you said, and crazy, really weird. But you were talking about the technology becoming smarter than us. I'm sure you've read or watched videos about the singularity that people talk about, the technological singularity. I think that's super interesting. Apparently that there's a point where technology will become sophisticated, smart enough to where it'll just be improving itself faster than we can keep an eye on it, I guess, faster than we can control it. And some people are like terrified of it, and then other people say nothing would happen. It's like a Y2K type deal. Who knows?
Yeah, nobody knows. I mean, it looks like with how quickly everything's advancing, all we can really say is it's very hard to predict what it's going to look like 20, 50 years from now. Yeah, but we should definitely be conscious of kind of the ethical consequences of some of the possibilities coming to fruition, like the singularity and artificial intelligence becoming like too powerful.
Yep. Ever since I sort of lost interest in uploading videos every day, spamming content to YouTube, I obviously had a lot more free time, and I've been watching, obviously, philosophy videos, psychology. I watched probably every video Jordan Peterson ever put out, and just lots of people. Like, I watched a bunch of your videos, like I said, Exerbia, and try to get into the sort of like the more science side of it. I've been watching people like Lex Friedman. I don't know if you know him. He has a podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. He has like an AI podcast, and I don't know anything about technology really, but it does intrigue me. I want to know, what is this piece of glass and metal that humans develop from the earth that I hold on my phone every day that does magic? Like, how does it work? How do these people make it, and what are their intentions with the technology and all this stuff? Sort of just all of a sudden became something I was interested in.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so powerful. Like, it makes sense when, like, I don't know if we're really addicted to our phones, because yes. Our phones, but our phones really have everything in them. Like, if you like lived in like the 60s or 70s, you can go and talk to your friends at the diner. You could go to the movies. You can go and play games with some people. You can go and watch some sports. Now you can do all of that just in one device. And it's just like, it's either, it's just replaced this kind of sort of delayed gratification and necessary sort of extra effort, because it's all of this stuff is in our pockets.
Yeah.
Or like, I mean, we are you could, I guess you could use the term addiction in the sense that it does kind of inhibit a lot of our own sort of like social functioning and stuff like that. It can affect our lives negatively.
Yeah, I guess depends how you define addiction, but I'm scared to look at my screen time. I'm sure a lot of it's like phones off or just podcast going while I'm doing stuff throughout my day, but still, I'm sure that number's bigger than I'd like it to be. And yeah, the phone can do a ridiculous amount of things. And something I think about a lot is, you know, I was born in 2000, and just someone who was born 10 or 15 years before me would have a completely different experience of like, okay, so for example, I remember when I was in 6th grade, like messaging girls on Facebook. Like Facebook had been out for a few years, and I in middle school, I was hanging out with this girl. Like, she was across the hallway from me. We decided to meet up at this middle school basketball game, and we're sitting there texting each other on fucking Facebook or whatever. And it was just, I just think if I was born 10, 15 years earlier, I would have not been able to, I would not have had a choice to be texting the girl I liked across the hallway. I would have been forced to go up and interact like people had for millennia before. And I don't know if being born in this era that I was in is a good or bad thing. You know, I don't know.
Do you remember kind of like what your childhood was like? Do you like, because I feel like kids nowadays, they probably grow up and they have like iPads, smartphones. Like we're probably the last generation. We're kind of like in between that. Like we kind of had a fairly historically normal childhood, but then also we grew up with like the internet just exploding.
That's true. I remember my childhood. It was, I didn't have a smartphone till I was in 7th grade is when I got one. It was the iPhone 4, so it could basically like watch YouTube if you weren't at home, if you had data. But then other than that, it was kind of just like an iPod, and you could text on it, I guess. But I used to always be playing outside, and I played some video games growing up, like PlayStation 2 and that sort of thing. But I guarantee, like nowadays, parents will just toss their kid an iPad because they'll be quiet and indulged in that thing for hours, and you can go do, whatever thing you want to do without having to worry about your kid. It's the easy road.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that people who made the technologies supposedly don't give their kids it till they're way older. So I would probably go more in that direction when I have kids. Try to postpone that as long as possible, like maybe 14, 15 before I gave them a smartphone. I don't know. I have no idea what I'll be thinking when the time comes, but,
Now, maybe on the more kind of psychological level, how do you think mental health is affected by social media use? Because there is still kind of it's a common sort of kind of topic that's reported that social media use is like heavily associated with depression, anxiety. But when you look at a lot of articles, there's one from I think from JAMA, and it's called Associated Screen Time and Depression in Adolescents. And they find that the association between social media use and depression is on average tiny, and they don't really know when it is related. They don't really know if it's social media causing depression or the fact that depressed people are more likely to just engage in social media.
Yeah.
But they do know that there are different types of social media users, and the kind of most problematic type is the person that uses it to escape their problems, almost like the same way people might use alcohol or drugs. It's very bad when it's used for some form of like escapism.
So, thing is, whenever I'm on social media, I'm just in my own little realm, even if there's like people in my room. So I haven't even really talked to too many other people about their social media experience. I guess I can only speak on my own. I'd be interested to hear yours. But whenever I'm on Instagram scrolling, even if I'm looking at pictures of my friends, like I'm pretty sure there's a tab on your Instagram settings where you can see like least engaged with, and I clicked on it once, and it's just like half of them are people I know and friends, and I just like would never like their stuff or click on their, like there's probably a third of the people I'm following that I'm following just because they follow me or I'm to be associated with them, but I don't talk to them, or I have no interest in what they're doing, or I just don't, I don't know, something along those lines. So I feel like I'll feel some negative emotion sometimes when I'm scrolling through. I'm like watching someone who I knew briefly in my life that I follow just because they follow me, and I'm like, why not? And I'm watching the sort of highlights of their life that they want to put out. And there's this, I don't know where it comes from, if it's just me and I'm this little, I don't know, resentful bastard who needs to grow up, but I'll feel like, some envy or some just some negative emotion looking at that. Maybe it goes back to, I don't know, some evolutionary explanation, but yeah, I sometimes when I'm scrolling through, I feel it'll spark some negative emotion in my life. Whether it's like me comparing myself to them, or I think that they're trying to portray something that's fake, or I'll read a caption and they're doing an ad and I'm like, this is just cringy as because I know you don't give a single or something. Yeah, I'm calling you out for your Ridge Wallet ad. Is there one going on this video, bro?
Oh my God. Jeez, it's 2 podcasts in a row where I have to deal with the Ridge slander.
I'm just kidding. It looks like a dope wallet.
Okay. Well, I understand what you mean, especially the comparison part, because we're probably not designed to kind of deal with comparing ourselves to the entire world. Literally. Or such a large group of people. I mean, yeah, because social media, it shows you maybe not the best of the best, but the perceived best of the best constantly, whether it's looks or competence in sports or any sort of like charisma, money, anything like that any sort of surface level thing that you can see and want to have in your life, it's there and it's like enhanced, and it can lead to a lot of insecurity.
Yeah, I would say that I mean, I guarantee most of the people that follow these people with tens of millions of followers that are portraying this perfect life, people that live in houses in Hollywood with all their friends, the blank house, there's always a new fucking house popping up with influencers and this and that. And I think a lot of the people who will be consuming that content, they see that little sliver of what the person wanted you to see, and then their brain sort of creates this. Oh, I think that's my dog scratching on the door. I think I think that their mind will sort of finish the picture. It'll write a story and be like, act like it knows the entirety of this person's life, or more than you can actually grasp from that picture. And the picture might not even be an actual representation of their life in and of itself. But then I'm sure you see a picture of someone on a yacht, and then you check their story, and they're going out and having drinks with some prestigious people, and you're like, wow, you just sort of complete the picture in your mind that this person has it figured out, and you're a lot shittier than you realize. Things alike. So
now kind of on the other end, because you're also you are a content creator, not just a content consumer. There is the issue of burnout, which was like a hugely popular thing to talk about. I think a few years ago, when like every YouTuber was making a video on burnout. I thought it was kind of ridiculous. And then when I started trying to make a video a week, I realized really quickly, because you're kind of your own boss, that unless you're actually kind of taking breaks and stuff, you can really quickly end up just super exhausted one day and just totally like feeling like you're out of ideas. What's your sort of kind of history with burnout. Have you ever really experienced it? I mean, you made a video a day for 2 years, so
yeah. I mean, you could say that. I mean, I remember waking up on Christmas morning during those 2 years, and my family, they had to wait to open the gifts because I wanted to edit and upload my video for the day before I started filming. And of course I had to film, I had to document our Christmas, it's our family Christmas and whatnot. So yeah, I've definitely I've been all involved. For me, I think burnout, I don't know if it's the right word, because there's definitely times I was like tired because I'd been editing for so many hours, and whenever I got done, I was thinking about what else I was going to film the next day, and yeah, the cycle can get very tiring. I think it was mostly, for me, it wasn't like, oh, I'm too tired to do this and I really want to do it, but I'm too burnt out. It's more like, okay, I've been, working hard to produce this content, but I'm sort of losing the why to why I'm doing it, I used to be like, no question whether or not I was going to film a video. Like, it was just going to happen. I wanted to film. I want to be a YouTuber. So I was going to wake up and that was going to be my day. I was going to make the best video I could. That was going to hopefully do well. And, the whole thing. But then gradually, I think I just sort of suffered disillusionment, I guess you could say, where I just started waking up and I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I, putting in a ridiculous amount of hours, and my bank account's this, my life on paper looks amazing, but I'm just as depressed and unfulfilled as I was at 15. And I think a lot of the motivation that I had to do YouTube from the beginning stemmed out of insecurity. I think because I wasn't the coolest kid in high school, that I wanted to use that as motivation to become the most popular kid out of everyone, and so once I realized that even though I had millions of followers and I still wasn't fulfilled in that, in that realm that motivated me, then I was like, I think I want to take a break. I think I want to slow down.
Well, that's interesting. I brought up self-determination theory in one of my last videos, and it's the idea that we kind of have 3 basic needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And if one of these are thwarted, it can actually show up as being kind of like a pathological or maladaptive behavior in another need.
Okay.
So
what did you say they were again?
Autonomy. Okay, so a sense of like freedom and agreeing with what your own behavior is, like being kind of the author of your own life. Competence, which is feeling some sort of mastery and control over your environment, and relatedness, which is a sense of belonging and caring.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so I mean, that's a really common one that you see in a lot of studies, is that people will feel a lack of relatedness early on in life, and they might make up for it by kind of seeking out a more kind of external, kind of surface level sense of relatedness, where you have like lots of followers online, or if you're a celebrity or something like that, and that can actually end up thwarting your autonomy, because then you're not actually doing this job, whatever it is, out of your own sort of just desire to do it. It's controlled. You're doing it for something.
Yes.
And it's not even something that will necessarily give you a sense of relatedness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there became a point where it went from being intrinsically fun. I was just making flipping videos that I love to watch back and make edits to no more copywritten music, vlogs every day, typical intros, outros, merch line, collabs, talent agencies, and tours and all this stuff. And I would definitely say that a lot of it stemmed from the lack of relatedness, because I definitely felt competent. I felt like I was mastering. I felt like my dreams were coming true. I was becoming a YouTuber. My competence was shining through. But relatedness, I there was it's basically nobody, but I had a couple of friends that were in the social media realm, but I mean, I had fun hanging out with them, but I didn't relate to them like I did with my friends I grew up with in Kansas, obviously. And so that's why whenever I see TikTokers that are 15 and moved from, middle of nowhere to California to live in a mansion with a bunch of famous teenagers, I'm like, bro,
yeah,
doesn't that don't you have friends back home that are like you, that you like talking with? And why would these people, just because they have followers like you or whatnot, it doesn't mean you're going to relate to them. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a common piece of advice that usually when people become famous, they should keep the people around them that genuinely liked them before they were famous, because there's actually some sort of honest kind of commitment and sense of caring to the person. But then as a person becomes famous, they also kind of feel the need to attach themselves to other groups that are famous, so they're more likely to not associate with this crowd of kind of genuine childhood friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, no,
and you end up with this. Yeah, it's a very almost kind of cliche story of the person that kind of forgot who they were.
Well, yeah,
after
literally.
Becoming,
I feel that in my hometown. I live back in my hometown now, and there's still a disconnect between me and the people I went to school with. I wasn't too close with them when I went to school, but the disconnect's still there, where they feel I think highly of myself or something, because whenever I did start making it, I went through my Snap and just had just unadded everybody that I wasn't really talking to, that I didn't really want to be associated with, just because I was I'm going to reinvent myself now that I'm making it. And it wasn't even out of spite. It was, I don't really know what it was. It was mostly okay, I want to transform myself into the person I want to be, and I think a step would be getting rid of some of the people I either don't talk to, or I feel like I'm intimidated by, or that I don't know. So I went through and cleared that out. Sorry, letting the dogs in yet again. Should have got a dog sitter before this.
I'll just call it featuring Tanner and his dog.
Literally.
Yeah. No, you were saying?
Yep. I went through and had a purge moment, and all my friends did too. My friends, because I had friends that appeared on my channel, Dylan and Quentin, that went to school with me and were friends of mine since middle school, and we all sort of went through and did that, unadded people that we just had on our list that went to our school or the school over, that we just knew of friends through friends, because for one, those people are going to be hitting you up, hey dude, blah, 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 even though you never talked, and that sort of generic story, you never hit me up till I was this. We're looking out for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a disconnect there. People probably still think that I think highly of myself or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to go. I feel like I'm making almost no sense on this podcast, because no one here really knows my story, I'm sure, in detail, or obviously didn't grow up in my hometown. So maybe I should
stop going
down this rabbit hole. So
no, but I think what you're saying, it is super relatable. Just for anybody that finds any sort of success in life, that it's, there is certain drawbacks, and then there's also certain moments where you have to kind of reevaluate why you're doing these things, and what kind of made you who you were to begin with. And it's a very difficult process with not a lot of guidance, even if it does also sound kind of weird to say it's difficult, because also being successful kind of denotes the idea that you've made it and you're happy and your mental health is good.
So I have a question for you, actually. So obviously you've been uploading more and more YouTube videos, as I have not been. And so I wonder just, what motivates you, aside from being able to talk to people you wouldn't have otherwise and have sort of philosophical conversations that you might enjoy? You know, what motivates you to throw it into the editing program and make the thumbnail or the small animations? You know, I know those, I'm sure those take a shit ton of work, although they're quite simplistic. No offense.
Oh no, yeah, well, I'm not making Pixar animations. I think that like right now in this moment, a lot of the motivation comes from the fact that I just spent 3 years at university, and I was very disciplined with my studies. I studied really hard. I was doing a whole bunch of different things. I was doing research. I was writing papers. I was just trying to get as high of grades as possible. And so you end up learning so much, but also your ability to kind of be creative and free is hindered. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You have to kind of craft your tools before you can actually, you know, use them to do what you want to do. But I think, you know, so when the pandemic happened, I decided I'm just going to take some time off because I didn't really want to do like school online.
Gotcha.
And, you know, I'm grateful that I had this to kind of fall back on. And now I kind of have this sort of space where I can freely explore different ideas and thinkers and concepts in a more kind of creative, toned down way where I'm not being scrutinized for every single, you know, possible misinterpretation and every little, you know, possible error. I just kind of wanted to make something, you know, personal and kind of fun, and then also hopefully add something to other people's lives. I'd say that's the motivation now, and I can't guarantee that it'll continue. But yeah, I think that's the best way I can say it.
That's super interesting. No, that's cool to see that perspective because for me it's kind of like disillusionment, but in a different regard. And then you, because that's like a experience that I've obviously never had. I said I have a high school education here, but I've wondered about going to university and how fun would it be. And typical, like I've been interested in taking the sort of generic philosophy, psychology classes because you have in-depth education that I obviously do not. I'm sure every listener can tell that. And so
I mean, it's never too late also to
true.
Even just enroll in like one course or anything. Or I mean, if you just, I think you've been kind of doing this, like some sort of self-learning too. Like it's, it's not restricted. University's expensive. Like, and as a Canadian, I think it is, but like, I can't even imagine like in the US.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm sure there's a lot more, like you said, freedom in this going from university. Like I said, I don't know what that's really like, but I do know what YouTube's like, and that's why I started a podcast, just to be able to sort of experiment with what I think and be able to have people, you know, comment on that, and then it's sort of like a back and forth type thing. Where you're just learning continuously and learning about new ideas, and you get to ask and express yourself. And it's I don't know, it's just so, it seems really authentic to me, the whole new like medium of podcasting, because it's not like short, choppy to the point, like it would be on the news or even previously, like just the long form content where you get to see someone uninterrupted, like what they're truly like. You know, I really just think that's interesting. So I will continue to watch the Sisyphus podcast.
No, everyone should check out Tanner's podcast also. It's I did like the first episode.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you.
Continue doing it.
Yep, it's one episode long. One of my cameras fell over and broke, so I'm waiting on it to get fixed, and I will film another one. And I will be a little bit more awake and sound less than I do right now, hopefully, on mine. So yes, maybe check it out sometime.
So one of the sort of initial kind of thinkers in philosophy that you delved into in one of your videos was Alan Watts.
Yes, sir.
Who I see a lot of comments on my YouTube videos. A lot of people like him. I did a short video on his life.
I watched it. I think.
What do you think is kind of his main message?
I think yeah. I remember him talking about in one of his lectures that was super impactful to me. Is like you have to decide whether the plot of life is tragic, like serious, whether it's ultimately tragic where we need to, be sort of. He talks about like in the hospital how everyone does everything they can to prolong someone's life, even though they're hanging on the end of tubes and they're suffering for days on end. And it's this whole sad thing. But then he talks about how in other cultures, they just all are celebrating around with booze or whatever, just having a sort of celebration of life. And it's just different in different cultures. And he obviously went over and learned a lot from those other cultures. So I think his main message that I've picked up on is just learning to take it. It's sort of rewriting the way you see life. Us Westerners have this. We've watched too many movies. It's the good versus evil. We need to save the world. It's all up to you. You write your own destiny, which is all good. But if you are like me and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna be this YouTuber and I don't know. I had this idea of like what I was gonna do to make it. Like it was sort of like my life was a movie. I'm gonna go out and conquer. This is like my mission. And then whenever I did it, like I said, it was met with that disillusionment. And I feel like that might be a sort of consequence from the culture I was raised in, the hustle grind, and you can make it, and you can. But I just don't. I think something that Alan says is you don't actually ever make it anywhere. He says, like, have you ever heard of a revolution that changed the world? Or I'm sorry, I'm trying to, too many things bounce around my brain. I'm trying to get out and make sense.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he just talks about how basically our human condition is the way it is, and there's nothing you can go out and accomplish that's going to rewrite it, or there's no revolution that you can go form out on the streets. Not saying women shouldn't have the right to vote or some shit, but like for the most part, nothing's going to change our human condition. So on an existential level, I think what I take from him is taking life with a grain of salt. And
I think you're kind of saying that he just values this idea that we should kind of be in the present moment above all else. Mm-hmm. And that a lot of these things that we attach ourselves to, like maybe certain ideologies or beliefs, whether it's kind of this sort of hero's journey idea that, I'm going to do this and this and become successful, or a big idea like I'm going to start a revolution and change the world, that neither of these are necessarily bad, but they can take away from the fact that, life is truly made at the present moment above all else, and the future and the past can diminish this.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, you're a lot better at explaining stuff than me.
That's okay.
Definitely.
Well, he says, and I think he says a few things fairly relevant, especially regarding like social media use. He says we cannot be more sensitive to pleasure without being more sensitive to pain. Mm-hmm. And I think that that can kind of, not that he was around like in this era,
I wish he was,
where it's really bad. Yeah, but he is kind of bringing up the kind of point that we have just as much access to basically all the pleasures in the world as we do also have access to all of the suffering and kind of terrible news. And that can definitely drain on somebody. There's a video I did recently on compassion fatigue, and it's the idea that you can actually suffer secondary trauma from just experiencing or seeing another person's suffering.
Dude, yeah.
I mean, that's giant.
We've all watched a world star hip hop video of some kid who knows a son of someone who's getting trampled and beaten by a crowd of, just a mob of people or whatever it is, just something completely horrific to watch. And I'd say our brains definitely can interpret that just as traumatic as the actual event if it was to happen to you, or if you were there in person. Like, It's crazy. I think that's definitely a thing. You can. I bet there's people in therapy, post-traumatic stress, that just watch videos, you know?
Yep.
They ended up on a gore site from a Twitter link they didn't want to click or some shit. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and there's also that quote that I think you used in one of your videos, that the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves.
Yes.
And and that one, I think that is almost like his sort of thesis statement.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah.
That's the home run one. Yes.
And, what does that kind of mean to you?
I think in the Alan Watts video I made a few years ago, that was probably one of the either the introduction or the conclusion that I used there. I love that line so much because that literally explains what I did for years, and not saying people shouldn't try to achieve things and make the world better. We have made the world better, and we probably could continue to, but in the grand scheme of things, there is no... I definitely think that's what I was doing for a while. I went from trampoline kid to YouTube star. I just wanted to keep my views going up and keep associating with new people, get my name out there, and sort of just become this Hall of Fame YouTuber, you know, write myself in history and all these things. But the path to do that, since it wasn't just intrinsically fun like flips were from the beginning for me, I think it just drove me to dissatisfaction and just sort of resentfulness. Like I think that is where a lot of the negativity in my mind came from, was dissatisfaction with the hard work I'd put in. And then whenever I read that quote, I was like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah.
That's my cat now making a bunch of noise.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I run an animal farm over here.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was another animal. That's interesting. I think that raises a good point, that we're kind of brought up, especially in Western cultures, to think that hard work will lead to happiness.
It'll set you free, don't you know?
Mm-hmm. But it's a little,
Go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
you were saying. It's a little bit simplistic, and it kind of avoids the fact that we also need to find kind of not only hard work, but sort of meaningful work. Like it just the effort alone won't be enough to actually bring us some sort of happiness. But that's difficult to advertise. That's difficult to actually say to anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people go their whole life and don't really know what meaningful work is. It's hard. It involves a lot of self-discovery and learning and growth.
Yeah, something I'm coming to terms with a lot now is I'm like 20 and a half now. I used to think that happiness was a thing I was going to arrive at, you know, once I'd sort of gone down the checklist, you know, girlfriend, house, career, like all these things that people say, if you want a good life, you need to, you know, exercise, meditate. And so I would just sort of go down the checklist, imagining once I got all these things done that I would finally have some peace of mind or something. But I think there isn't... so do you know who Academy of Ideas is? Have you ever heard of that YouTube channel?
Yep.
Oh, I love that YouTube channel. So he has I think it was on his... I paid for his like subscription extra videos thing, so it might have been on there, but it was called The Myth of Arrival. So he had 2 videos where he basically just talked about how in Western culture we have the story of arriving, but we never actually arrive. And he went super in depth to that. I think that was like one of the turning points in sort of the way I think was that video.
Well, is that the video? Does he kind of bring up Da Vinci?
I'm not sure. I haven't watched it in a long time, honestly. But I have clips of it in like my notes, in my phone, and quotes.
Because it's that idea that sort of like we need to live with this sort of active passion and curiosity with life. Like that in itself kind of justifies. Yeah,
his whole... I remember the end of the video from The Myth of Arrival was him saying, you should be doing things in your life that aren't in means to an end. You should be doing them because of the intrinsic value they have in themselves. So for example, like it would be the flips for me, like just, I'm not doing it to get somewhere. I'm not doing it to be the best flipper out of all my friends or something. I'm doing it because I love the act, the experience of whatever, just going upside down. And so I just try to think of it like that instead of like, oh, I want to make $1 billion in my life. Because then once you do that, the whole game's up, and you got to sort of come up with something else. There was a guy, and I talked about this in my podcast a little bit. I think his name was Simon Sinek or something like that. And he was talking about the infinite goals versus the finite goals, and how, becoming a billionaire would be a finite goal, but then you could have an infinite goal that you're sort of never going to reach, but it's fulfilling in and of itself from the constant striving to just do that task or activity or whatever it is. But
I think it's hard for us to sometimes remember that happiness is more often than not a state rather than an actual sort of lifestyle, or kind of permanent sort of feeling. It's a state, and it's a state because of the hedonic treadmill, the fact that we appear to have some sort of baseline happiness. So it doesn't matter if, they've done studies with people that won the lottery.
Yeah, I was just about to use that as an example.
People that won the lottery and people that ended up with kind of traumatic leg injuries where they couldn't walk again. And both individuals ended up, the people that weren't able to walk again initially were incredibly distraught and sad, and the people that won the lottery were extremely happy in the beginning. But within, I think, 4 or 5 years, their baseline happiness was pretty much the same. They weren't any happier or sadder. And it's kind of sad in the way that it makes you go, well, there's no goal I'll achieve that'll make me happy permanently. But it's also kind of a good thing in a way, because it makes you realize that your psychology is very adaptive, that a lot of bad things can happen, but it actually won't be as bad as you might think it will be. A lot of it's the worrying.
Yeah, that's true. I've never thought of it like that. I've always just thought of the first part of what you said, how it feels like there's nothing we could ever achieve to reach what we want. But then I never looked at it that way. Like, you can also recover from super traumatic things because of whatever that, or neuroplasticity or whatever it is. That's super interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, but, and you bring up a good point with the jumping, or like the flipping, and the like all of the stuff you'd like really like doing for the sake of it, because a lot of psychological research points to the idea that happiness is a state, like we've established. But if you pursue meaningful goals, and by meaningful goals, it usually revolves something. I don't know if you've heard of flow psychology, but the sort of idea that you need to find something that is both matched in challenge and skill, so that you're kind of focused and it's like fulfilling in itself, and there's temporal change. That if you kind of find goals like that, like learning to play chess, learning a language, doing gymnastics, something that's actually fulfilling, not because you're doing it in order to get something. It's what they call autotelic. It's meaningful in itself. As a side effect, not only do people usually experience more meaning, but as a side effect, they usually experience what they call hedonic benefits, which is kind of happiness or enhanced subjective well-being. And that's it seems to be the best sort of life you could live, just based off of these studies, is one where you're pursuing meaningful goals, and as a side effect, sometimes you achieve states of happiness, but you shouldn't expect this happiness to be static.
Yeah. So wait, what'd you say that word was to use to describe the? It was a philosophical term.
Autotelic, like when something is when something is worth it in itself. It's like I think it's from ancient Greece. Got it. Yeah, and Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he uses it. He's the kind of founder of flow psychology. He uses it to describe activities that give flow, like surfing or mountain climbing.
Okay, yeah. I've watched some videos on flow state. I haven't really read into like any of the clinical or more like academic whatever side, but just sort of YouTube videos here and there. But I think I actively try to strive for a flow state and things like, just because I know that an extra bag of money and a new supercar isn't going to change my life. Like the hedonic treadmill will bring me right back.
Yeah.
And so I try to keep that in mind, but now I'll sort of have it less as like a negative thing in my mind. I feel like after this conversation, I'll be like, yeah, but also as like a good part to it. It is just the way, it's the nature of our mind. Cause I always felt like it was sort of like, whenever I say disillusionment, and I feel like there's a level of dissatisfaction and I don't resentfulness towards the world, not in some like murderous way or some shit, just in like a self-pitying type of way. And so it's, thanks for being my counselor for a little bit here.
No, that's good to hear. Yeah, no, I mean, what would you say? I mean, this is obviously putting you on the spot, but what would you say is kind of like the meaning of life, at least for you personally?
Well, yeah, that's an easy question. Well, right now I'm actually about to open a trampoline gym nearby. I was going to make it private, but now I think I'm going to make it public, so that the general public can pay to get in. And I still don't really plan on making too many YouTube videos, maybe some podcasts, but mostly just spend time at that gym meeting people. I don't really know if I think my answer to this will change. I could give an answer from philosophers, like Alan Watts' answer, just to be alive. But I think I'll probably have a better answer as time goes on. Right now, I think my meaning for me is just trying to talk to different people and get their points of view, because I've spent, my whole life in this hallway, where I've just had, I don't know, a pretty narrow experience. There's lots of people with different viewpoints that I'm sure could benefit me, and that's why I wanted to start the podcast, just because I feel like there's lots of points of view, like yours, that would be helpful in the way I see the world and the way I think about it in the way, because right now, like I said, I feel like I have this sort of demotivated, more negatively biased outlook on the world, which I didn't used to have, and I sort of felt like maybe came with age or something. But I, obviously would like to try to get back to a cheerful state like I did when I was younger, and I feel like that's sort of the path that might lead me there. So right now, that's my meaning, I guess. But what's yours?
Yeah, I guess I deserve that.
Yeah, there's the Uno reverse card for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right now, first of all, I think it is pretty intellectually honest to just say that, this could always change. It's very fluid to carry a sort of sense of meaning. It could always shift throughout your life, and that's something that's completely, I think realistic compared to people that try to capture it in one statement.
Yep.
I think right now it's probably more focused on people and belonging. I guess that's sort of like relatedness.
Yep.
And then kind of with that sort of this experience of flow. And I think both of them go together quite well. That, I'm basically my happiest when I'm doing things that are very engaging and self-fulfilling with other people.
Yeah,
like that's usually when I'm my most both happy and fulfilled. And I could really say, like, this was a very good day. This was like a worthwhile day. And I think just pursuing moments like that as of right now, it's the most important, because like I said, like I was working very hard in university, and, because of that, you can kind of fall short, being with people a lot, relating with people a lot, being more empathetic, more, just doing more social things. So it's kind of nice. That's kind of, I guess, my focus now. And I'd like to think that that's probably going to be my focus for the rest of my life, but I know things will happen out of my control, and you know, like we talked about, it's amazing how quickly our psychology can adapt to even the best and worst of things.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. Yeah. And it's just normal now that we sit inside most of the day and all this stuff, you know, the world's changing, and it seems like we do have a brain equipped for change, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but
right,
that was great, dude. I appreciate you having me on here. We should definitely do it again. Like I said, I appreciate the insight you helped me grab, and I hope some people out there got some own, could sort of dig their way through my unintelligible babbling.
No, you have a very, I mean, I can't have a lot of guests on that have 4 million plus subscribers. It's
True.
Definitely a unique perspective that you shared with us today. Mm-hmm. And thanks for listening, and thanks for coming on, Tanner. And see you next time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.